Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Connecticut at Your Service. My name is Carmen Nieves, and I am your host, and we come to you live each Tuesday at 6:30, where we feature individuals in the community that are making a difference through their work and giving back to the community. Every week, as we bring in our guests, it's always to inform, educate, and empower. And today, with no exception, we have an awesome guest, and his name is Jordan Smith. He is, yep, there we go. Jordan Smith he's got a lot of letters after his name, so we'll let him talk about that. But he is a motivational speaker, podcast host, lifelong Bridgeport resident. He has his journey started rooted in the resilience and service. Having overcome personal loss and mental health challenges, Jordan found his purpose in helping others, guided by the mantra, difficulty is not impossible, and I love that. He's earned a master's degree, he's testified in the Senate, and he's become an advocate and is very dedicated to helping youth and men specifically in the arena of mental health. Jordan, how are you, and welcome.
Yes, I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here because we've been trying to connect for a couple of months.
We've been trying to make it happen for sure.
Listen, I want to give some love to Joe.
Shout out to
with
Joe,
the UB Accelerator program who connected us, and I love what you're doing in your work to help empower men
Thank you.
and kind of break that stigma of mental health. But before we get there, tell me a little bit about you and how you started.
Yeah, this is always like the toughest question, right? Tell me about yourself. But like you mentioned, my name is Jordan Smith. I am a mental health speaker based out of Bridgeport, Connecticut, and I'm on a mission to connect 500 men with therapy by the year 2030. So we do that through events, one-on-one coaching and speaking engagements. And our main event is the Men's Mental Health Cookout, where men from all walks of life are encouraged to come and celebrate in their mental health without scrutiny, without fear of anyone judging them for
Stigma,
how they feel, no stigma attached to it. So it's a beautiful event, and we draw a good crowd. And you know, like I mentioned, I'm looking to connect 500 men with therapy by the year 2030, and we're making good way on that.
Now, your specific target is men. We were talking before the show, and we talked about how mental health affects women and men differently. Mm-hmm. And you were telling me about some statistics that it's like, based on the fact that you were like, my goal is 500 men, you should be able to meet that because it really impacts a lot of men in our state. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, one of the most glaring statistics is that 6 million men in America, men specifically, suffered with depression in any given year. And I was one of them. So I have navigated my own bouts with depression, anxiety, I've had panic attacks. So I'm a product of my own product. Everything that I preach comes from not only educational experience, but personal experience.
Lived experience.
Lived experience. And the way that men experience mental health, it's almost like we get in our own way of navigating it. You know, with the work that I do, I find that women support me more readily. Women understand mental health a little bit better. Women are better at building communities for one another and supporting each other in that way, whereas men struggle with that. You know, I struggled with it, and then with the men that I try to reach out to, I find that it's almost that they ignore that they have a problem, or they feel like we can just tough it out and be men and we'll just fight through the problem. And that's not necessarily true. You still need help, you still need support, you still need a community. And it's okay to be vulnerable enough to say, I need help. But sometimes we compare it with masculinity, like it's not masculine to say I need help. But sometimes the most masculine thing you can do is understand that you need help and then go seek the help instead of just banging your head against the wall trying to make something happen and you don't have the tools.
I mean, I've had bouts of it myself. You know, 2 years ago, my life changed in a lot of different ways. And I remember I was taking medication. I had to go to see like a therapist. Ultimately, it affected my ability to work and everything. So what are some signs, and I'm trying to ask this the right way, what are some signs that you're not gonna be, talking. So I think you've got mental health, but what might be some signs that we might be able to see that that maybe that person might need some help? What are some signs that a loved one, someone who cares about somebody else, can kind of like spot and say, you know what, maybe I need to like check in a little
Maybe
more.
it's just, I think if you have someone in your life who you talk to frequently and then you find them being a little bit more withdrawn or a little bit more distant, check in with them. If you were someone like myself, I think during my teenage years, the way my depression showed up is I slept a lot. And my family used to be like, oh yeah, Jordan, you're gonna be like 6'5", the way you sleeping, like you're gonna grow a lot. And I was like, no, it wasn't that I was growing a lot or going through growth spurt. I was sad and I didn't know it, or I didn't know how to articulate it or express it. So for me, it was sleeping a lot, isolating myself, or some people withdraw and become hermits. Some people start to engage in behavior that isn't necessarily like them. You know, if I'm a more chilled, relaxed person and all of a sudden I want to go out drinking and doing this and that, there may be something there, like what's causing me to act out of character.
That's so different.
That's so different, yeah. So, and even if someone isn't displaying that, it's also okay to just routinely check in with people. And I think routinely checking in with people sets the foundation for when there actually is a problem, they're already comfortable enough to talk to you.
I think that's really great. And I agree about the sleeping, because absolutely that still happens, you know. And sometimes it's like, I'm just so tired because, you know, my husband and I have very different jobs. He's got a very laborious job. I have a very, like, I'm always thinking, doing. And I will tell you that sometimes things feel exactly the same, although they're coming from a different place. He's tired from labor. I'm tired just from
mentally,
everything on my mind, you know. What are some things, since we're talking about that, I want to make sure that we talk about your event and then just talk about just some things that we can do. So we talked a little bit about what are some signs, what are some things that we can do, because I think approachment and engagement with that person that might need help, that's really hard too. It's like, how do you say it? What do you do?
So just so I understand your question, some things that you can do to improve your mental health, or some things you can do in like how to approach somebody?
How to approach somebody first, but I want to get there because I think I still might need that myself. So how, if we care about someone, what are some ways that we could engage and say, I know definitely you said if you see that that person's very different in the way they're acting, you know, if they were really outgoing and now they're not, or opposite, but what are some things that we can do? Like, how do we bring up the subject? Yeah,
I think the best thing you could do is not tiptoe around it. I think when it comes to mental health, a lot of people are so afraid of like, okay, will I say the wrong thing? How do I come up to you? You know, how should I approach this? And the best thing to do is just talk and ask questions, you know, like, how are you feeling? You know, what's new today? One thing my mother does, she'll say, what made you smile today? You know?
I love that.
And then sometimes if you're sitting there and you're like, yeah, nothing made me smile today, that may be an indicator. Like, okay, well, what's causing you to feel that way? Or like, what made you upset today? Or what bothered you today? I do some work with kids, and before we start doing any work that we do, I check in with them and I ask them, I said, you can tell me either what made you smile this week, or what made you smile today, or you can tell me what grinds your gears today, or what grinded your gears this week.
Okay.
You know, and they seem to love that, and it gets them talking. Instead of me asking a super specific question, just asking like, hey, what made you smile today? What made you upset today? You know, what are you looking forward to this weekend? You know, different questions like that really will get people to open up. And a lot of times people just want to feel like someone has an interest in them. You know, not that they want something from them or they need them to be a certain kind of person, but just, and especially for men, you know, we mentioned with men earlier, a lot of men just want to feel like somebody is interested or someone cares about their day, because men carry a lot on their shoulders and feel like they can't share it with anybody or express it with anyone. So then when anybody comes along and is like, hey, what's going on with you? How are you feeling? And like you actually care, you see a whole different side of men that you normally would never see, because oftentimes men feel like nobody cares. So it's like, why bring it up if no one cares? But just asking those questions, being consistent in people's lives, being supportive, and not dancing around the topic. You know, you want to be very like, hey, I'm doing this because I care. And even if it's uncomfortable, you showing up and being consistent in that way, they'll appreciate it.
I love that, because sometimes it's the starting the conversation that's really, really tough. So let's go into a little bit about your family, because I mean, And I'm asking that specifically because when you're taking care of everybody else, you've got to have an anchor that takes care of you.
Yeah.
So tell me about your family.
My family is everything, man. They support me in a lot of different ways. I like to say my family is not only my family, but they're my business partners too, in a way.
Oh, do tell.
You know, so
I'm trying to get my family to be my business partners too.
So my mother graciously enough allowed me to turn a good portion of her basement into my studio. So I record my podcast down there. I've made tons of content, clothing, took business calls down there. Like, she shows up to everything that I do. She's probably watching now. So Mom, if you're watching,
that.
hello.
I love that. Half the battle is who's in your corner. You know?
Yeah.
Because we were talking about, because we're relatively new you've been a little bit longer than me in your podcast.
Yeah.
You said like 5 years, right?
5 years, yep.
And then you've been a motivational speaker for like 3.
3 years.
But it takes a while to kind of ramp up the momentum
to
and
build
the
that
following
traction,
and all the different things. So I love how you said that your family comes. Because I have daughters, and I'd be like, when they don't come, I'm like so affected. I'm like,
it matters when you have family show up. It makes a difference.
They know who you are, and those are your safe people
Yeah.
in the audience. I love that.
And
so you have brothers and sisters. Do
yeah.
tell.
So even adding on to the family piece and like even how they're like business partners. So my brother David, his background is in sound and engineering and audio engineering. And when I started the podcast, he showed me what equipment to get, showed me how to set it up, how to use it, how to build a podcast. If I had any troubleshooting questions, I'm calling him. And then I have another brother, Patrick. Patrick took almost all the photos that you see on my website or for a lot of my events. He takes the photos.
That's awesome.
And then even my father shows up to everything. And his schedule is such that like he works in Stanford half the time, and I was speaking at Yale, and he drove up there from Stanford, sat through that traffic and made sure to be there. And even though he missed a portion of it,
still came.
He had to be there. And that's what mattered the most, is having people that show up for you. You know, so whether it's family, friends, or whoever, because I have a lot of friends that show up for me as well. But having people in your life that show up for you make all of the difference.
I love that. And you have sisters too.
Yeah, so I have an older sister and a younger sister, Kimberly and Jacqueline. I love them a lot, man. And I have another brother, Joshua. So there's a lot of us, man. We got a big family, but family is everything. I love all of my brothers and sisters. They mean the world to me, man. I think that's one thing I definitely got from both of my parents, is the importance of family and how important it is to maintain those relationships even when they're difficult, because sometimes family can get on your nerves, right? And not every family relationship is perfect.
So I'm mad at you today and then it goes away later.
Exactly. So the importance of maintaining those family relationships is everything, and I definitely got that from both my parents. It's like even when it's difficult, you still have to try to maintain it.
I love how your family really helps you, empowers you, and supports you. Because when we were talking about like this, tell me about your podcast. Because I'm telling you, I was looking on and I wanted to put a clip on the show, but I'm like, each one is like 30 minutes. I mean, like that's the whole
it's the
show, right?
full episodes.
Yeah,
you
so
get
tell
full
me a
episodes.
little bit about how that started and kind of what traction you've gotten since.
Yeah, so the name of the podcast is Daily Dimensions, and if you just Google it, you can find it. Daily Dimensions Podcast. And that started back in 2020, November 16th, 2020. And it came from a very personal place for me. I was going through a very rough time emotionally, navigating depression, really bad breakup, loss of loved ones to suicide and different things like that. And I was in a rough place. And as I had the support of my family and groups that I would go to, therapy I would go to, I started to feel better, and I became a new person on the other side of healing. And I said, okay, well, Jordan, you've become this new person. You have this story to tell. I almost felt a sense of duty to be able to be like, okay, I know other men feel this way. I know other people feel this way. It would be a disservice for me to go through this, for God to get me through this, and then not go share this with other people. And I said, let's do it in the form of a podcast. And then that's when my brother came in and other people in my circle who were like, if you don't buy the equipment, you're not going to start. And pushing me to go do it, because I talked about it for months, and they were like, listen, go buy it or you're not going to start. And that led into speaking, which led into events, and like everything I do now really started from the podcast. And then that one thing just grew. and grew and grew, and it's still growing. So
You gave me some stats about your podcast.
yeah.
You got to share it with
Yeah.
you got to share it with our viewers, because I was like, oh my God.
So we have over 100 episodes. I think yesterday, we dropped episode number 131. So we have 131 episodes total, and we have listeners in over 32 countries.
Wow.
And
Multiple languages? Or just
multiple
English?
languages, yeah.
That is
So
amazing.
we've had people in Russia, we've had people in Jamaica, we've had people in, most recently, England, Brazil, you name it, and we probably had a listener there. I think the most surprising country we've ever had a listener from was Cameroon, and I was like, oh, okay, we're reaching, we're getting there,
That's
we're
what
making
counts,
it happen.
You know,
But-
and for every one person, they probably have some, may have more than one person kind of listening. And I think that the greatest thing, and why this show is so important, because even if the person doesn't say a word and they take in a little bit of what you said,
Absolutely.
it makes such a difference. And I will tell you that Bridgeport is such a beautiful place.
I love Bridgeport.
There's so many people that work their jobs, do whatever they got to do, and then they're giving back to the community. That's why it's called Connecticut at your service, you know? So that for me was really important, because people are giving back, and it's not always money. So we're going to talk a little bit about how people help your organization. But I just got such a kick out of how you got the name for your business. So I would love for you to share that with our guests.
So not everybody knows this, but so when I was in a corporate space before I started doing this full time, I would have to make a lot of reach out calls. I would get a lot of people calling me from the clients that I would work with. And every time I would answer the phone, I'd be like, Jordan speaking. And it kind of just stuck. And sometimes in business, the hardest thing is finding the name. Aside from starting, is just, what's the name? And I was like, Jordan speaking. And I was like, I speak, I do speaking engagements, I do a podcast, I do one-on-one coaching. Like everything I do requires me talking to people. And I was like, let's just do Jordan speaking. and it worked, because that's how I would answer the phone. Like for years of my life, it was just Jordan speaking. And now it has a different ring to it. All puns intended.
Because I saw the logo and I'm like, so how, because that is really a tough thing about people that are starting businesses and kind of go on, like you believe something in your spirit so much that you're like, this is what I'm called to do right now. And not everybody understands it, because usually when we're starting, it's sheer passion.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm not getting nothing, but I feel like this is what I got to do. And if you believe enough, that does come.
And when you feel it in here, you can't ignore that feeling. You have to move on it.
And people don't understand it, you know, and it's like, how did you name your business? Or what are you doing? Or how long have you been in business? I'm like, you know what? I want you to understand what I do, but really it's about what it means to me, what the name of my business means to me and what it represents. And I think for us, when we started because I have my own company outside of the show, and it was really about processing grief and loss, you know, and we wanted to be able to do that in a way that helps people. So I feel like in you, kind of like what you were doing and helping myself and how we made it through is how we push through. Now, if you go on your website, matter of fact, well, as you guys know, we're here on Soundview Community Media TV. We're here with Jordan Smith, who's a podcast host, motivational speaker. But if you go on his website, you're going to see many companies that he's spoken for, you know, partnered with in different things. And I wanted you, as you take a look at those, but we are on a live show, so this is his Jordan speaking. And then we are on a live show, so if somebody wants to give Jordan a call, call in.
That's the
and
number.
We'll be happy to
Call
answer
in.
questions. Call in. So what is one of your favorite organizations that you've spoken to and why?
One of my favorite organizations, honestly, was Housatonic. I connected with someone there named Alexandros, and he was at the time in charge of, they had a men's center. And I just randomly, I'm like looking for people to reach out to, found his contact information, shot him an email, and we connected on what was an amazing event. So me and a couple of my friends shot a 2-part docuseries on men's mental health called A Love Letter to Black Men.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and
we'll make sure we put that. So make sure that you guys are following us when we post it. on Facebook, and we'll put the link to the docuseries.
Yeah, for sure. And we were able to do a screening of it at Housatonic with the Men's Center. We had maybe like 30 people show up, and we had a Q&A at the end with the people who were in the docuseries, the person who shot it. And it was just amazing to see how much it resonated with the people there, how much the men who were able to watch it, and even the women who were able to watch it, were able to connect with what was going on in the series.
Awesome. Look at that. We've got a call.
We got a caller.
Hello and welcome to Connecticut at your service. Do you have a question for our guest, Jordan?
Hello?
Hi.
It sounds a little choppy. Can you hear me clearly?
I can.
I was calling. Is Jordan speaking? Is he still on? I had a question.
Yes, he is.
Yep,
and
I'm right
he
here,
is
man.
Right here.
I'm right here.
Hey, Jordan. This is Miami calling in from Bridgeport, Connecticut. I follow you on social media, and I know you do a men's mental health event each year. What got you going with that, and how do you express to men that their mental health is important?
What a great question. You beat me to it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I love
No,
it.
that's
I love
okay.
it. Please answer that, because that's exactly where we were going next.
Yeah, so what started the event was really men need spaces to be men, and men need spaces to be able to talk about what their issues are, what's bothering them, or even just a space to relax, breathe, and not feel the pressure and responsibilities of being a man, because that comes with a lot. And as I looked around me, I noticed that a lot of those spaces didn't exist, or they didn't necessarily meet the need the way it needed to be met. So 2 years ago, in my backyard, I said, let's just throw this cookout, right? And let's call it the Men's Mental Health Cookout. Let's highlight mental health. And 20 people showed up the first year. They were all my friends.
Listen, we talked about that. That's where it starts.
They were all my friends. And then last year we had about 50 people come, and most of them I did not know. I met a lot of cool people along the way.
That's
and
awesome.
Miami has been a big supporter of it. He was there at the last cookout. He was a speaker at our first cookout. So
The caller?
Yep,
Oh,
the gentleman
nice.
calling.
Okay.
Yeah, he was a speaker
Sending
at
you
our
some
first
love,
cookout,
sending you some
man.
love.
So
I was one of the 20 friends at the first event.
he was one of the 20 friends for sure. So he's been a big supporter. And to answer the second part, like getting men to understand that their mental health is important is one of the biggest ways we do that is getting them to really like take inventory with yourself. I think a lot of men ignore that they're sad, or see like sadness as weakness, or like if I express it as weakness. And men don't always create that space with their friends to do so. You know, like most group chats with men are not supportive spaces to have these mental health conversations. And then if you come from a family that doesn't necessarily understand it, or even if you have a partner that isn't supportive of your mental health,
Or doesn't understand it,
that can be real difficult as a man. So now you're sitting there like, man, who do I talk to? You know, and oftentimes it's like you talk to yourself and that's it, and then you keep it moving.
You called the cookout a special name. I saw on your website.
Oh, Grill and Hill?
Grill and Heel.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. You know, I have a friend of mine, Charlie Grady, and he does like these meetings, and it's for people that are reentry, and he calls them hang time. So there's something about, you don't call it that, although underlying that some of the work that you're doing. Miami, did you have another question?
No, I just wanted to quickly, before I wrap it up,
Sure.
Just because I want to go back and tune into the live stream, I just wanted to give Jordan his flowers, because he's actually the person that got me started, like he calls it, taking inventory. He got me into therapy, and he got me to, realize that it's okay to open up, and he made it a very safe space for not just being a black man, but being a man in general, where, a lot of men, we tend to bottle things up. And I just really wanted to give Jordan his flowers, because he's been the person that got me started on my mental healing journey. So, cool to see you, Jordan. I love you, brother, and can't wait for the next mental health over in this cookout.
Hey, love you too, man. Appreciate you calling in.
Thanks for calling in, and keep watching.
Appreciate it. Thank you. I will.
Bye-bye. So since your friend Miami, so perfectly timing, I wanted to put up the flyer for your event so you can give people, our viewers, kind of some heads up about it.
Yeah, so Men's Mental Health Grill and Heal. It is Saturday, July 19th. It is going to be in West Haven, Connecticut. The address is 129 Bull Hill Lane. And one of the best ways you can support this event is we are looking for volunteers to help with the setup, with the breakdown, and even if you want to help by paying it forward and helping someone be able to come to the cookout who may be in need or maybe not necessarily can afford a ticket, we're doing that as well. But it is a men's only event. A lot of women ask, like, can I come? Can I come? Can I come? If you're helping to volunteer, I'm okay with it. But to just come as an attendee, no, because we do want to create this safe space for men to be able to
I think it
have
brings
these
something
conversations.
different to the dynamics when it's just men for men, then you can kind of, because they do that for women too.
I was going to say there's
groups,
women's events, there's women's groups all the time, and there's not enough just men only events.
So we're going to put up your website again one more time. I just want to make sure that folks know that they can find out, because you do have a link, right, that says if people want to get involved in the event.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
So everything can be found on my website, jordanspeaking.com. You can purchase your ticket there. You can contact me for one-on-one life coaching. You can also contact me to volunteer. There is a form that we filled out for volunteers. So yeah, we need all the help we can get to make this successful. We're hoping to get 100 people this year. So tell a friend and tell a friend and share it with the man in your life, because this is the event that every man needs.
So we're running out of time. So really quickly, I wanted to talk about what's next for your Grill and Heal, because I know that you've got some goals, right?
We got
so
big
tell
ambitions.
us what you're looking.
So the goal for this is to turn it into a festival of sorts. I was kind of inspired by another event called Curl Fest, and it's in New York. It's an event about natural hair, right? And loving your natural hair and embracing your natural hair. And they have found a way to turn the topic of natural hair into this big festival that draws thousands of people. I'm hoping to find a way to take this topic of men's mental health and turn it into a festival that draws thousands of people. But we also want to do multiple locations, because last year we had people come from New York, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island just to come be in my backyard to have this community. So it shows that there's a need for this in other areas. So we want to be able to bring it right to your backyard, right to where you are, and be able to build that community for you and make it something that everybody can have a piece of.
I'm going to predict that you'll do at least one more event this year with your grill. With your grill and Heal. So so we're here with Jordan Smith, who's a motivational speaker and podcast host, and his organization is called Daily Dimensions is your podcast.
Yep, Daily
Jordan
Dimensions is the
Speaks
podcast.
is your business. And if you want to help with the cookout, and that could be if you're interested in being a site and having Jordan come and have a conversation, have people donate some food. I think that as a community, we can make things happen, and it's not always direct cash.
And vendors
But
as
cash
well.
works too.
Yeah, cash always works
But
too.
I think vendors, if you're a business that maybe I'm thinking like, and we unfortunately we don't have time for another caller. So I'm gonna apologize right now because we're running out of time. So really quickly, Jordan, tell us, how they can reach you one more time.
Yeah.
And we're gonna put up your main slide.
So you can reach me at jordanspeaking.com. All of my information will be there, whether you want one-on-one coaching, you need someone to do trainings or speaking engagements at your place of work, or if you just want to connect with the podcast and reach for events. You can also find me on Instagram at Jordan Speaking and at Daily Dimensions. And we're looking forward to hearing from you. So thank you.
Okay, so again, we want to thank you for tuning in. Jordan, thank you so much for being a guest. I think great things are going to be happening. You've been on Connecticut at Your Service with Carmen Nieves and Jordan Smith, and we'll tune in with you next time right here on Connecticut at Your Service. We come to you live each Tuesday at 6:30. We'll see you then.